Hi, scrappy friends. It's Kim Sparks back from Making Creative Memories in Time. And today I am working so diligently trying to wrap up 2002 for Ashley. I think the last video you saw me do, I created a simple page kit. And it had this sort of, it was a whiter birchwood paper. Well, this morning, I pulled out Deeper in the Woods and realized there was a birch paper in it. And the reverse of this birch paper was like a wood grain. And so I needed to scrapbook these photos of Ashley, who's now grown, married, and has a 13-month-old child almost. These were taken at a park here in Eastern Kentucky called the Breaks Interstate Park. Lots of locals just call it the Breaks. And this was when she was 2, and it was her first pony ride and also her first ride on a paddle boat. So of course I want to scrapbook this, and I'm using the Deeper in the Woods collection. I've sort of laid out what I'm going to do now on the photos, and these were pictures that were already pre-printed. So pardon the shine. They're a glossy finish. And I know my studio lights are catching that. But I did that 1/16 of an inch white matte. And then I did a 1/16 of an inch wood grain matte. And then I did a 1/4 inch of a stripe matte. Okay. I wanted, because it was either going to be beige cardstock. And then when I saw this, I was like, that's going to be my background page. This is not my typical do it in your white space, but what I'm struggling with before I glue this down, this is like undercarriage, a forest, and there is some, I don't know that the camera is going to pick that up, there's some little velvet, like it's like moss. I'm really liking this. And then I used this punch, which is the Evergreen Trees. I used this border punch, and I punched out 2 different, it punches a larger and a smaller tree. And I have some Vintage Photo Distress ink, and I have some Forest Moss Distress Oxide that I sort of played around a little bit with these. So I'm trying to decide before actually the layout of the page is exactly what it's going to be. I'm trying to decide if I want this and create like this little cluster for my visual triangle here, here, and here. But this little cluster is going to be built between the inside of each page. I think maybe how I'm going to do this. And because this, I had this little circle, this little circular, like a cross cut of a tree, and this says Lost in Nature, and it's got that velvet on it too. Found in Peace. I love that. These leaves on this frame have that velvet. And then this is a larger cross cutting with that pine, and I thought that would just look really good tucked in behind that little 4x4. Oh, I think I am going to use these. I do think I'm going to use these. Okay, so let's just dig in and get started. I had to sort of talk through that, and I hope that none of you mind my talk through process. Now, I already punched a lot of these trees, and I'm probably going to have more of them than I need, and that is quite all right. I will dump them right back in the paper pack. So just to get started, I'm going to separate my pages, and I'm going to work on my right-hand page first. Don't ask me why. I just feel like that'll be easy for me. I'm going to start there first. So hopefully everybody is having a great weekend. Hopefully. Today is my mother's birthday, and my brother-in-law's birthday, and my cousin's birthday. So my brother-in-law and my mom share a birthday, and then my cousin and my mom share a birthday. How cool is that? So I am going to adhere this piece, and the reason I'm going with this printed leaf piece is I want the spot where I'm going to journal to show up, but I want a little pattern, and then where my trees are going to be, I want that to show up but have a little pattern. And I'm leaving like literally 1/8 of an inch at the bottom, just because I don't want this to be all heavy at the bottom. I want that little bit of white, well, this paper for balance. So I am going to just adhere the border only at the bottom, because we're going to take these leaves and things in, or trees. Now the trees are really small scale compared to this, but that's okay. We're gonna just enjoy it and go with it. Now, what happened is, for whatever reason, way back in the day, 2002, when we printed these pictures, they were printed in a 5x7. Don't ask me why, how, but they were. And so this picture ended up being, I think the photo itself was like a 6x5 or a 6 1/4 by 5 1/4. And so I'm trimming that down. I want that to be right at the edge of this paper. And I want to leave a little bit of this birch just for balance. So let's get this one adhered first. I started to use this beige, and it was like ghosted birch trees. I started to use that for my base, but the reverse of that was that beautiful stripe paper, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to use that stripe paper. Like, I have to use that. I love it. And then this is going to, the pony's little face is already cut off, so I think we're good to overlap this photo just a little. And when you're working with, and I don't know if you can see this, to keep from cutting into a second piece of this paper, I got real strategic and pieced it, because you can't tell it on the matte side, but I didn't want to cut into a second piece of that paper, so I pieced it together. Now, I would not be covering if the pony, if he had a face and you could see, well, he has a face, obviously. He had a face, but I would not be doing that if the pony's face was visible. And this is just more or less to pull in that cross cut of the wood that is going to be in all 3 clusters, and then just to add something right there in that corner. Now, I'm going to go ahead down here. I had inked these trees, and the reverse of these trees is basically this same kind of pattern right here. It's just in color, muted colors. And so I did a little play on color here. And we are going to pull in my little silicone mat. Now, when I print from my photo printer, I can't use the silicone mat on them, but these that are pre-printed, I absolutely can. So that's the good thing. Tweezers, tweezers, tweezers. I literally am down to the very end of Ashley's album, and I can't wait to get 2002 finished. 2005 is finished for her brother. Her Her brother was born in 2004, so his 2004 and 2005 are finished. She was born in 2000, so her 2001, 2001, and 2002 is finished. So let's get this. I should have laid this first one down before I laid that one down. And I know that sort of blends in, but that's okay. I want it to be muted. And then I am going to come in with, let's see what Natural Bliss. Leaves and Laughter. I'm trying to just see what I have here. Find Peace in the Rustling Leaves. I feel like if I do that one. I'm liking this one just because it's that dark, bold brown and it's going to show up. And I do think I need one more tree, and we'll let it be this. Now, I have not cleaned this. This is just a little cross cut of a mat. And I've got a green spot I'm working in, and I've got a vintage photo spot I'm working in. And I am just using just little brushes from Amazon. And I'm going to do this green, but just by adding this little bit of vintage photo, it really just mutes it down a little bit. I love it. And of course, you know, I'm probably going to do some splatters on this page, friends. You know me, I'm probably going to do some splatters. And we'll do that one little green tree right there. I don't know how I feel not using a white base page, but I'm going to be okay with it. Now, up here, I feel like I do need something up here just to finish that off. And these are the only, you know what? I have this word Serenity, which I feel like that's too large for up there. Serenity was way too large for down here. Have this little bit of the velvet leaf. That way we have a little bit of that velvet sort of happening in all of my clusters. Let's put a little adhesive on that. I like that. That velvet is so nice. I looked through the cards and I didn't see anything. Every path leads to new discoveries. That's just too big. Too big. I feel like I need something. I like this Peaceful Moments. I do like the Peaceful Moments. I'm going to pull this to me. Try not to get my head in the camera. There we go. Because when it's down, friends. I like that. Peaceful Moments. Okay, so this page, right page, is finished. And then I'll have this journal, all of this over here to tell the story. Because I really have, it's one event, but a couple different things are happening. This was 23 years ago today, on September 7th, it was my mom and my brother-in-law's birthday. And so we were celebrating a birthday picnic at the park. And then they did the paddle boats and then the pony. So there's a couple different stories. So I want this journal space. And I probably will journal in like a chocolate brown pen. Love that. Loving it. Okay, so now let's move into... I'm pushing this intentionally, friends. And this, I probably will do just a little ink around that frame to help it show up right there. Now remember, we put this down at about 1/8 of an inch. Of course, I'm going to be out of tape. Anytime I'm live or do a video, I run out of tape. If you follow me, you know this is true. You're singing the Milli Vanilli song with me. Girl, you know it's true. Uh-oh, we moved our page. I love being my authentic self with you. I feel like you are 1,300. By the way, I met 1,300 go. Woo, woo. Thank you for following me. Being my true authentic self with 1,300 of my favorite friends. You guys are just the best. You are the best. Thank you for following this crazy, silly memory-keeping journey with me. Okay, so let's, obviously, we sort of want to have a little bit of balance between these two pages. So now I'm going to come back in, and hopefully this one is still in frame. Okay, and let's straighten this one up so I can sort of tell. So I'm right at the 2.5. But now because I have this in a frame, I really can't get much closer to the end than right there. I had to look at this guy to make sure I wasn't going to run out of tape on him. So I'm right around 2.5. And before I glue that one down, I want to just hold this up and see if he looks straight to me. Kind of, yes. I hope everybody is having a wonderful weekend. We are going to be celebrating my mom and brother-in-law's birthday a little bit later with a nice dinner at a restaurant. Okay, now this one, I do want to ink up my edges. And remember, I've got a little bit of green and a little bit of brown, so I'm going to sort of stay in my brown area. And all I'm going to do is just blend in a little ink on the edge. And what that's going to do is that's just going to really help. And I want it smooth like this. I could do ink edge to ink edge, you know, the ink pad directly to the edge of the frame. But I want it to be smooth. So we're just going to do this. And that's really just going to help this natural wood frame pop and stand out against that background paper. And I know this is white, and that's okay if we get a little bit of ink in it. That is perfectly fine. But for the most part, I really just want to ink the natural wood frame. That's the thing I love about being creative and scrapbooking, is really the only rules you have are the rules that you set for yourself. Right? That's it. Otherwise, there are no rules. Okay, so now let's drop this guy in. This page is going to go together fairly quickly. But see how that stands out now against that birch paper. I love it. So what's happening here is I'm getting about that 1/4 inch between the leaf frame and this, and that's what I want. Okay. I'm going to let that just bud up right here, like it's coming right out of that piece. I love it. So then this one is my title, my actual title, Lost in Nature, Found in Peace. I really kind of wanted to fussy cut this, Life is Better in the Great Outdoors, but it was sort of large, and there wasn't really anywhere I could... Oh, there, friends. Wild Beauty. I wonder, I knew I had that, I just didn't know what I did with it. I wonder, let's see if this is going to make a tear. I knew I wanted that. I knew I had it, it was hidden. It was hidden. The scrapbook, oh, look here, friends, the scrapbook gods are on our side. Yay! Just stick that right there. Wild Beauty. And the reason why I liked that Wild Beauty is just made me think about that horse's name. Like I was in my mind, I was thinking, oh, that little horse's name could have been Beauty. Because Beauty is a good name for a horse. And I really wanted to use that Wild Beauty. There we go. Yay, I'm so glad I found that. Yay. Okay, so now over here, I want to use one of these. Because now remember, this is going to end up being like a cluster in and of itself. Like it's a shared cluster right here. This is going to be a shared cluster. So, and what I did here is it was a larger piece of crosscut and I just cut it. Now, I almost feel like I need this. But here's what I think. I don't think I need all of this. I think I just need, and I don't even know that I need it down here, because here's more of that velvet, so I don't want to overdo that. Where I may use it though, let's see. Let's go ahead and do this little guy, because we're going to forget to attach him if we don't. And then let's put I feel like that just looks better like that if it's right there together. Okay. So down here, we have one of those little sprigs, but I don't know what that will look like. I don't know that I need it down here, actually, because I'm going to have trees, so let's not. However, I think that does build a little separation, so that stands out better there. Okay, we have to just keep moving, friends. Otherwise, you know me, I'm going to like get nothing done. So let's go back to our green, and we are going to pull in a tall tree and a short tree. Now the difference in these is there is a tree trunk on the short tree, and there is not a tree trunk on the tall tree. So we're going to flip these over, and the first thing we're going to do is we are going to come in with the Forest Moss Distress Oxide. And we're just going to drop some of that, just random. Some lighter and some darker, just random, okay? And the reason I like it being random is you can still see that pattern behind it. And now we're going to come in. I'm through with that green, so it's okay. I can leave it. Well, let's go ahead and just wipe, just so we don't contaminate our brush. And now we're going to come in and we're going to use the Distress Oxide. Now this is not oxide, this is just Distress. And we're just hitting the edges just to mute down, darken down, and define the edges. Love this. I'd punched a bunch of these because I thought I might possibly do like an entire border down there, and then I was like, nah. So now I'm going to pull in one more large and one more small, and we're going to go on the green side, and then what we're going to do is just do our edges, and that's why I'm using the smaller brush, right? If I were using a larger blending brush, I couldn't control it, and it would just sort of be everywhere. The entire tree would be brown. Now this is a little different, this design and layout and background paper not being white, than I normally do, but I have to tell you, I think I'm liking this. Like I think it just lends itself to that outdoorsiness. So now right here, I ended with a short green tree. So my first tree right here, I want to be the tall, sort of brown tree, okay? And that way you can see when this is in an album, it's going to be a combined visual triangle element, okay? And then I am going to have another little tall tree. Maybe what we need to do is this. That is going to be a tall tree, but it's going to look like a small tree, if that makes sense. Struggling with the tape today, friends. And I'm just letting this one sort of sit a little bit shorter, okay? And then this one is going to be the lighter or the brown. And then we're going to let this one sort of tuck under just a little bit. And I really don't know that I am going to have any other kind of little quote or anything there, because I feel like if I do, that takes away from that being the one. Let's see. I wonder if I did such a thing as Wild Beauty. Like fussy cut this. Wild Beauty. I think not, and I'll tell you why I think not. This will be in a strap hinge album, but it's going to have a gap, a little bit of a gap between where the pages are, and I think I like it better being on one side. All right, friends, so everything is adhered down. This is finished. The only thing I think I want to do is I want to come in and do a little splatter here. Let me come in with a brush, and we want this to be a little bit controlled. I'm just going to use that Vintage Photo Distress. And the good thing about this being a glossy photo, let's cover that photo because I don't want the photo. So we're just going to drop some right there. We're going to come over here. Let's cover. And then we're going to come whoops, didn't mean for those. That's okay. It's already absorbed into the paper and it's okay. It is what it is. It got wet and I didn't mean for it to get that wet, but it is okay. And then over here, we are going to pull some in. And I touched it right there just so it sort of has that same feel. And we can totally do that. Do it with my right hand. I'm a little more controlled. Just so it sort of has that same feel. And that doesn't look like it was a boo-boo. Although it really and truly was a boo-boo. Really and truly it was a boo-boo. Let's put a little. And literally, we just wipe right up. And we're finished. The only thing that happened that I didn't want to happen on this page is that little spot right there. But that's okay. I don't mind it at all. And then we sort of made it happen right down here. So what do you think? This is Deeper in the Woods. And it totally is not me, but I totally love it. Got all this journal space and all this journal space. And I love it. I love it. That looks a little crooked. I'm going to have to check that. Standing up looking down on it, that looks a little crooked, friends. This is why I love Repositionable Adhesive. There we go. That one looks a little crooked too. This is the bad part of sitting and working. Well, children, is that one crooked? Oh. Very well may be. And again, I'm going to say, I could edit this out. I'm going to leave this in because we all make mistakes when we're working, right? We all do. I don't know any scrapbooker that doesn't stand up from scrapbooking while being seated and say, oh my gosh, that's so crooked. There we go. I think it looks better now. All right, friends, that is it. Hopefully you enjoy this. And if any of this Deeper in the Woods product is still available, I will link it down below. And once again, thank you for helping me reach 1,300 subscribers. Happy scrapping.